Hey there, in this video, we're going to take a look at a platform hub template. This is a space that we've built in some form or another for a few clients and want to share this along with a free template that you could hopefully remix and personalize to fit your team and how your team is approaching platforms. Wanted to get into how this template works, the databases involved, and how to make some customizations so that you can make the most out of it. So the very first thing to note is we have these four key databases here. So areas are really what group all of these resources. Resources could be anything from playbooks to guides to templates, anything that involves either a file, a link, some source material. Network is, we could think of this as our contacts database. So some of these might be founders, some of them might be consultants, mentors, coaches, really including everybody here. And deals are specific to SaaS discounts or promotions, partnerships that your team has made with other companies and are available to founders. So very first thing to note is we have the home page. We can use the kind of table links here to jump into specific areas. So I can jump down to resources, I can jump down to network or deals. But if I go back up, we can see here at a glance the number of resources and contacts as part of this area. So if we open operations here, we could see it's a bit more expanded to include more information at a high level before jumping into specific pages. So here we have an about section, what type of information can a founder expect on this page, and then breaking up these sections by those databases. One of the things to note that's been pretty easy is just using Notion AI to say, describe operations space for VC platform hub, all things operations related. And this could at least give us a 1.0 of that description. We'll see here it's expanding. We'll maybe make this max 3 sentences, so it's not too busy. Cool, that works. And then here, just to de-emphasize a little bit, we're just going to make this gray and maybe make this italicized. And we have our operations space. So here, if I were to add a deal, let's say we're adding a deal for this SaaS and call this promotion. We could say that this is SaaS related. The discount is, let's say, 20%, and we'll add the link there. This is the high level information, but we could always jump into a page to look at more detail. So in this case with deals, we could see here, we can add things like original price, discounted price, expiration date, any additional tags, and a more in-depth description. And you also notice that the icons are hidden and we have some pinned properties here just to highlight the most important information. You can customize just to make sure that we're prioritizing the right information. But if we head back to the homepage, let's take a look at some of these other pages. So if I go back into operations, let's open a resource page. We've got some properties here, what area this resource is a part of, the type of resource, is this for specific stages of startups? And if there's any files or attachments, we could add those. And one thing to note here is we could upload a file or we could add a link if it's stored in the cloud. So either works in this property, depending on the type of resource. A couple things to note, if we go back to the homepage, let's scroll down to the resources section. One of the benefits of grouping by area is that we could also set up a view that is grouping resources by that relation. So here, this is updating automatically so that any areas that don't have any resources, that toggle is hidden by default. So this is only showing areas that have resources associated with them. And this again, when we think about a dashboard, we want to keep the information high level and to go into more of a deep dive of what this resource is, more information, opening the page and getting that detail. And then also when we get to network, similarly, this is also grouping contacts by area and then looking at different tagging just to make the most out of this. So we could see here the pinned properties are the company they're associated with, their LinkedIn URL, their email, if we want to open this and send them an email directly. This is something that we usually review what pieces of information are most relevant to the team and pin those at the top, think through second level, what are the properties that are nice to haves, and then you'll see here when we expand more properties, the majority of these are hidden by default if they're empty, just so that from a founder's perspective, if we open it, we don't see a bunch of empty properties, and the information that we do have is visible by default. For the contact page, we see the bio, and then we have their headshot here, and then if we have other information, we could always add that to the page below their headshot. And then lastly, for deals, this one's pretty straightforward, but if we open a deal page, we see here company it's related to, category, discount, and the URL, which is clickable. And then the other more deep dive information, like if we have information on the original versus discounted price, works the same way where these things get hidden if they're empty. And we always have the option to embed anything from a video to a deck to other links to resources that are related to that deal. So we can treat the body of this page as a standard document that's flexible to add whatever we need. A couple of things to note when we go back to areas for our databases, anything that is not relevant to the end user, to the founder, are hidden in this side panel. This is part of customizing database page layouts. So if we expand this, we could see all of the relations for areas. This is just a quick formula to show how many resources or contacts we have for that area. The gallery images is used for that home page. The status, so we could mark something as draft mode or not started, which will hide it from founders from that home page. And that goes for all the other databases. We have essentially a published status so that we could continue to create new pages without necessarily having them visible until they're revised, edited, and approved by the team. When we've set this up for clients, the main steps that we tend to follow in this sequence is first getting a sense of what areas do we currently have resources on, what are those main buckets. We may not have all of these, so we want to trim it and curate it as much as possible. And then there's a migration process. So thinking through our information on resources, on contacts and deals, getting them into the right databases, and then just several rounds of testing just to make sure that from an end user's perspective, going into sharing and adding a test account as a guest with can view access, just to see what it looks like from a founder's perspective and seeing how that works. This has been pretty helpful as well, but having a simple database to ask questions. If a founder comes to the hub and doesn't find what they're looking for, they could click into this button and we could pull up a quick form that allows them to ask specific questions. We're logging their name, company, email, etc. And in the template, there's the founder questions database. So this is pulling in submissions, and we could do things like track the status. Have we followed up with that founder? What category is it tied to? Who is it assigned to follow up with? That's been pretty helpful just to make it more interactive and make sure that founders have a space to post questions. Sometimes teams use a Slack channel or a Teams channel or just email, but this having it within the Notion workspace just gives it more interactivity. So yeah, that's just a quick overview of the template. This ends up looking very differently once we get in there, customize it, fit the brand guidelines of the team, and then also do rounds of testing based on the type of information that we like to share with founders. This has been just a good starting point to get teams up and running and have the databases connected in a way that makes sense and is, I think, most importantly, easy to maintain. Hope that's helpful, and I'll add the link to the template below wherever you're seeing this so that hopefully you can get some use out of it. Thanks.